my name really is Johnny Joey Jones. I was born with that name. And so you're either going to be like a Marvel villain or a funny guy on TV. You don't get to, when you have an alliterative name, success follows. I don't care who you are. Sometimes that success is notorious, sometimes it's notoriety. But I come from a place called Dalton, Georgia. And most of you probably haven't heard of it, but if you'll look down real quick, you're welcome. So Dalton, Georgia is where all your carpet is made. I would put a paycheck on the fact this carpet was made in or around Dalton, Georgia. That's how much of the world's carpet is made in Dalton, Georgia. Now you are so impressed, aren't you?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty important part. I mean, I know linoleum and hardwoods kind of make a comeback, but carpet's important, right? And so when you grow up in Dalton, Georgia, you do one of three things. You either make carpet, or you make places that make carpet. Or if you're real adventurous, you take carpet places after it's made. With my driving record and inability to stay in one place all the time, I was lucky that my dad made places that made carpet. We laid brick and block and rock. More so, we made the houses of the people that owned the places that made carpet. Someone the other day tweeted me and said, "I thought you were from the north end of the county." And I said, "No, they let me work up there, but I didn't have the money to live up there. I had to live on the south." And so I bring that up, not for any other reason. I'm not a politician asking for a vote. I'm not telling you how awesome I am with all my parents were. I tell you that because I grew up playing brick and block. I grew up in the Georgia suburbs, carrying brick and block up a muddy hill, cussing the whole way, because my mama wasn't around. Sweat coming off my brow, and I don't know if you ever mess with a cinder block, but they're not smooth, and you wear as little clothing as you can get away with. It kind of looks like, like a convention out there or something. I don't know, but you got to get as skimpy as you can because it's so hot. You got sweat dripping off of you, and all your skin's exposed, and you're carrying these cinder blocks up the hill, and it's muddy because they just dug the footing. If you know anything about houses, you kind of understand what I'm saying. It's muddy because we're in Georgia, and it rains all summer long, off and on, and you're just digging in, and you're trying to get these blocks up this hill, and you drop one, it falls on your shin, it cuts it, now you're bleeding and sweating. You need to pull the sweat out of your eyes, but if you quit turning your feet, you're going to get stuck. And the only people on that job site that know how crappy that moment is are the ones that have just made it up the hill and really don't care. And I bring that up, and I just recently started using this analogy, talking about it, because it's in those moments, and for me, I was 12, 13, 14 years old, but it's in those moments where you realize sometimes you just do the really tough stuff because it needs to be done. Not because somebody's going to pat you on the back for it, or because you're going to get paid for it, or even because when you get where you're going, it's going to be useful. You just know in that moment, this very difficult thing needs to be done. There's somebody relying on you to get it done. In that moment, my dad, 5'8", was bent over and had been for hours with a trowel in one hand and with the strongest hands you've ever seen, a 12-inch block in the other, one after another, laying it in the ground, using the level when he needed to, using the stream the whole time, and with just the trowel and we call it mud, order to his right, going down this line, laying 12-inch block for the foundation of somebody's house. And I really didn't appreciate it or understand it. Growing up as a brick block mason son, all I knew is I worked really hard, got paid a little bit, was in a single-line trailer, and everybody on the job site except the roofers thought my dad had the toughest job there. So there was some pride about it, but I didn't understand what that pride meant. For my dad, it was so much more. Because my dad knew two things about his job that mattered to him. Number one, when he got through building that foundation, somebody else would come in and frame the house. And if he did his job right, now you gotta understand, you negotiate the price at the beginning and then you pay your bill by the hour. So if he predicts this job will take 5 days and it takes him 8 to do it right, he's just gonna spend his profit paying himself. There were a lot of weeks he did that. Because he knew if he did the job right, if he laid the foundation right, did the difficult things even though no one was looking, when those framers came in, it would be true, plumb, square, and loving. They wouldn't have to spend their time and resources fixing his mistakes. Then everything that happened in that house after him was built on what he did because he laid the foundation. The other thing he realized, and that took me years to understand, was it was also a foundation the family was going to live in and on. They were going to build memories there, have Christmases there, have their kids there. They were going to have their grandkids visit them there. That this whatever section of property this family bought in this country was them putting their flag in the ground and investing in this country and owning something in this country and building a life in this country. And it took me years, probably even until just a few years ago, to really understand it. And I know that's exactly what my dad's mind was at. And so I bring that up because when we talk about admiration for service, as a military man, I get a lot of that. I get pats on the back all the time. But maybe we should look around when we're handing those pats on the back. When the power goes out, who puts it back on? When the water stops pumping, who gets it going again? When you need to move into a house and you're complaining because the building materials are insane, who lays the foundation? Who sacrifices of their time and their family to invest in their community? Preachers, leaders, the men and women that are building families, Americans. And the reverence I have for you all, because if you're here tonight, you care about those things, whether you need to be reminded or not. It's easy to complain. Those are the easiest things to do. My wife and I have bought houses 3 times now. It's easy to complain. But what's hard to do is to find something to appreciate and take the time to do. And everything that's been anything in my life has come from gratitude and appreciation. So I appreciate when people say, I don't know how you stay so positive. I'll get this a lot. I don't know how you stay so positive after you lost your legs. I said, I don't know how you get so negative. You still have yours. But really, they're thinking in reverse. They're thinking a little bit upside down. I am so positive and so full of gratitude because I only lost my legs.
Yeah.
2010, I was working in Afghanistan. Helmand Province, the Garmsur District. We were working along the Helmand River valleys. The Helmand River comes down through the Helmand Province and it kind of hooks. I want to say it hooks east, but it's been a while. And when that river hooks, there's an area there, it's real green. They grow all the poppy there. They make opium out of poppy and heroin, and it's a pretty big cash crop at the time for the Taliban. And so before I got there in 2010, President Obama was getting through midterms, looking at re-election, and made a promise that we would pull out of Afghanistan. So I don't hang this all on President Obama because tell me a president that hasn't either upped the war or ended it in the last 20 years. It's a hell of a campaign slogan, no matter if you're doing midterms or re-election. Current president, the one we just had included, to be completely honest. I don't think we fought a 20-year war. I think we fought 10 2-year wars between elections.
10 2-year wars. There you go.
And so we're going into Afghanistan. President Obama lets the Taliban know we're going to be getting out there by 2011, conveniently before the election cycle in 2012. And the Taliban, instead of regressing, they doubled down. Well, if you're on your way out, we're going to make sure we're there to fill in when you leave. And that's what happened. When we got there, we brought a little bit less Marines than were there before us. And so the Taliban takes a little bit more ground. We're still in the middle of this fight, so we're going to fight to get it back. The president makes a promise. Okay, I'll listen when it's a general. I'll listen when it's a lieutenant, We're going to pull out of here. Okay, well, I'm still fighting for my life. So as we get into the Helmand Province of Afghanistan, it had been left relatively quiet for the last 6 months. It fought really hard in 89. We get there in 2010, and it becomes a hotbed again, unexpectedly to an extent. And so we're working IEDs. That was my job. I was a DOD tech. I was a bomb tech, obviously, wasn't that good at it. It's the best joke I got. Don't laugh at that one.
Best joke he's got.
Don't laugh at that one. Get down here.
Oh,
So on the morning of August 6, 2010, I was tasked with my teammate and some engineers and other folks, about 200 Marines total, to go to a town called Safar Bazaar. Safar Bazaar was a trading post that was far enough away from the river in the green zone. We were leaving it alone because it wasn't part of our greater mission. It wasn't necessarily active in the poppy cultivation. What it was it was a place where people could go trade things. It was also a place where the Taliban was very well seated. So they would stock up their IED components there and spread them back up to the river. 12-year-old little boys running through canals, hooking them up. We'd walk through and step on them. That would be part of their logistical training. So if we could go in and take Safar Bazaar, we could cut the river off upstream, so to speak, on IEDs. Hopefully not have to deal with them already built. We can catch them in their stockpiling stage. But the problem was we have rules of engagement. We don't want civilians to get hurt, injured, and killed on our behalf. Anytime we do an offensive operation, we take that responsibility even greater. And so we actually had to let Safar Bazaar know we were coming to take it. So when we did, all the civilians left, which is what we wanted, and all the bad guys took all those IED components that were stockpiled and made a minefield out of town. In 2 square kilometers, we've done 207 IEDs. And so with 6 EOD techs divided into 3 2-man teams, you can do the math, Marine Corps, you think I got that right. We took the town. One team went up on top of the hill to provide overwatch. Another team was dropped in the middle of the city, worked their way out, so we'd have to medevac route. And the other team, my team, drew the short straw. We were the main efforts. We were going block by block, building by building, street by street, clearing IEDs. Now I know we have some Marines in here, is that right? If he's awake, you better say hoorah.
Hoorah.
There we go. We got a couple soldiers in here.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yep.
I know y'all had dinner, but you can give me a little bit of something. So we got some Marines in here, right? Hoorah! Some soldiers.
Yeah.
They're louder, I don't know. It's not usual, but I'll take it. And I appreciate the Navy and the Air Force, but you're not part of the story right now.
Yeah, part of the story.
So when you clear IEDs, you use technology. You have what's called a route clearance unit that comes in to do that. And just to give you an idea of the difference between the Army and the Marine Corps, I'll explain to you what I was doing. I had an Army route clearance team, and they used a ground penetrating radar. It was literally the technology they used on the moon rover, which was decades ahead of its time. Big panels on a cart with just one guy driving, and they drive out through there and they look in the ground and they see the bombs in the ground. Behind it would be a Buffalo, a big up-armored vehicle with an excavator arm, almost like a backhoe. So if the GPR found it, it'd back up, Buffalo would come up and dig it out. And behind it would be a troop hauler and some soldiers that if they needed to come out and do hands-on procedures or create a cordon for me to come do hands-on procedures, they could. Very technologically advanced. The Marine Corps version of that was a D9 bulldozer with a big rake on the front of it and a line of guys waiting to jump in and drive when the guy driving gets blown up.
Oh, God.
That's the Marine Corps for you. Now, when you're on a big D9, if he gets blown up out there, it's going to lose a few teeth out of the rake, but it's just going to ring your bell. He goes and takes the water break and takes back his bell. And so for 5.5 days, I had 2 route clearance units going. The Marines would, set one off, and I'd go over to a post blast, find another one while I was there. While I was there, the Army would find one. I'd come back over there. I'd work it. While I was working it, I'd find one more. We'd work it. The Marines would find one. I'd go there, work it. They'd set one off. Just for 5.5 days. It was bomb after bomb after bomb. And so it was a very difficult week, but it was an important week. I was doing my job. Nobody was getting hurt. And I got woke up on the morning of the 6th day by Corporal Daniel Greer. Now, for those of you that do understand the perils of college football in the Southeastern Conference and the Southeastern part of the United States, you understand that Daniel being a University of Tennessee fan, me being a Georgia fan, meant I had more in common with the Taliban than because the real enemy is in Oxford, Tuscaloosa, Auburn. And so, as we went through this deployment, Daniel won me over. This guy was a fireman from his hometown, full-time, but he joined the Marine Reserves. And so as an active duty Marine, that's not the way you got to get against it there. You're just playing it once a month. I got to do it every day. And then on top of that was Marine Corps engineer. So the Marine Corps engineers and EOD have a little bit of a rift because we grew out of the job of engineers. And because we are smarter and more capable, so we have to come over to our own thing.
Sure is.
So he's like, he's a reservist, he's an engineer, he loves Tennessee. There's not a redeeming quality about him. He should join the Navy or the Air Force. I'm kidding. And so, Daniel won me over. The first thing he told me was that he got saved right before he got there, so he couldn't cuss, but he didn't mind if I cussed. He said it jokingly, but he was serious. And then he told me about his son Ethan that was about a year old. He told me about his wife Stacy that was, I think, 5 years older than him. She had robbed the cradle with him, but he fell in love anyway. And he told me about being a University of Tennessee fan. And he actually brought an axe with him from his fire hall. His fire hall was so proud of him for going to war, they just wanted him to use that axe on one operation to bring it back so they could frame it up. It's got Afghan dust. So he brought his axe with him from the fire hall, and he worked so hard. And he worked hard. The engineers ended up being kind of the security for us because usually they would go out and find them. They'd have to provide security until we got there and take them apart in a traditional setting. In this setting, everything's on foot, no trucks. You're working really hard. He was just another helping hand to help find the IEDs. And so Daniel woke me up on the morning of August 6, 2010. I'd been up late that night working IEDs. My teammate had gotten a concussion, so I was working by myself the night before. The next morning, he was good to go. So Daniel woke me up and said, Sergeant Jones, we got an IED over here, but we got IED components over here. We need to check them out, something we've never seen before. I said, okay, sounds good. It was early, so I was kind of aggravated. Probably gave him a little bit of crap about it. I got my gear on. We literally just walked across the street. It wasn't any further in this room. Walked across the street from the compound we had set up in the northeastern corner of Safari Bazaar. And we thought it was a hotel, but it was actually a storage building, and that's where they were stockpiling all their IEDs. So we had to get the roads clear first, then we started the buildings. That was the second building we went to. When we got there, we realized that it used to be full of bombs, but now all those bombs are in the ground, and there's just remnants left. But in those remnants were technologies that they were using against us we didn't know they had. So we had to document and take forensics, the other side of the bomb job. And so as we got up there and started prosecuting this, my teammate picks up something you're not supposed to move. It's a piece of U.S. ordnance, and he puts it on his shoulder. He pulls it out of the building. He walks it across the pathway about the width of the wall to me, and he sets it down behind a wall about as tall as this podium. I used to call it a D wall, but I felt the irony there was just wasn't right. So it's just a wall about as tall as this podium. And so he sets it there, and I get upset at him for doing it because that's something I know you shouldn't do. So I tell him in the most professional way possible, excuse me, but you messed up. To which he probably said something along the lines of, I'm not sure you're correct on that. And so he kind of walked away. We were aggravating each other. But Daniel stayed. He stayed right over here. He had his gun at the ready because everything on the other side of this wall had to be cleared to include the streets, and houses. And if there were going to be a sniper, they would know this is the build they'd want to watch, and this is where they might try to get us. They were specifically trying to get EOD techs. And so Daniel was worried that I didn't have enough security to do my job. My teammate walked away to get some guys to help us with the forensics. And I wanted to make sure this piece of ordnance he moved wasn't a hazard to us as well. So I told Daniel he needed to back up. And Daniel said, no, it's my job to keep you safe, Sergeant. You don't even have a gun on you right now. I did, but it was on the back. So you're not even, you can't shoot back if you wanted to. You're using your hands. I need to keep you safe. I said, fair enough, but you need to take cover. You need to get away because if anything goes wrong here, you can get hurt. Well, Sergeant Jones, that's a risk I have to take to do my job. And we're in an impasse. It was my job to keep him safe. It was his job to keep me safe. Who wins? Well, of course, a stubborn hillbilly from Tennessee wins. So I said, okay, well, at least take a knee. If you see anything over there, let me know. I'll duck down and you can do your job. I said, okay. So I leaned over the wall and kind of sweats in my eyes. I'm thinking about carrying block up the hill. Well, at least Daniel's here to see it this time. Like, this is something worth doing, and nobody, if I do it right, nobody will ever know because nothing goes wrong. It's kind of a cool feeling. But thankfully, I had that feeling growing up, that sense of responsibility. It's okay if it sucks. It's okay if it's difficult and it hurts and it's pain-filled and frustrating because it's for a purpose. If I do it right, nobody has it, and that's okay. That's reward enough that nothing goes wrong. And I remember having that epiphany of thinking about that at the moment. It's kind of like laying brick and block. So I work on this, and I look at it, and I find it, and I don't remember what I found, to be honest with you. I know I leaned back up, I wiped the sweat out of my face, I put my helmet back on, put my glasses back on. I turned to Daniel to talk to him about it. I guess I was ready to move on. And I stepped to the right, and I turned to Daniel. And when I stepped to the right, I stepped on the ID that was in the ground that I didn't know was there. And so for about 0.5 seconds, I was an astronaut, I was rocket propelled, I flew through the air. I landed on my back almost immediately. The first thing I saw was dust. I saw the dust come up and everything turned tan. And the next thing I felt were my lips felt like they'd blown up from the inside out. Now this is Modesto, so I don't think you all will get this. But if I was down in LA, I'd say, ladies, like a full syringe. You know what I'm saying? Gentlemen, don't worry about what that means. Just know she ages like fine wine. But my lips felt like they were swelling up from the inside out. I thought I was going to lose. I thought my face maybe had been hit the worst. So I land on my back and I get my eyes open and I'm on my back and my left arm is twisted around behind me, really making sure it's there, I guess. I'm not looking for it. And I look down, my legs are going, knee, on both sides. And so I reach for a tourniquet. There's one on each shoulder and one on each hip. And we put them there so we can get to them quickly, but so that if they're any further away, they may go flying with what you need them for. So I reached up with my right arm to grab a tourniquet off my shoulder. I had my gun in my right arm. I had it thrown across my back and it was falling over, so finally I reached back and I put my hand on it. And I was trying to hook it back and I was turning talking to Daniel, so I had my gun over here. And so I looked over and I reached up my right arm. Now, These two very young folks here were talking about Harry Potter a few minutes ago, so I'm going to use a reference that maybe only they will understand, but it's a good reference. So I reached up to grab a tourniquet off my left shoulder with my right arm, but when I reached my elbow up, my hand stayed down. My arm came up, but the top half flopped back down. As you see in Harry Potter, where they accidentally pull a bone out of his arm and it just kind of flops around. That's exactly what it looked like, except my bone was still there. It was just in a lot of pieces. And I looked down and my arm was pretty much severed, everything but the meat on the back. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is sometimes in a moment, you have to start thinking about your contingencies, right? If you're bleeding out of 2 limbs, that's tough. If you're bleeding out of 3 limbs, probably time to say the Lord's Prayer. So finally, I just pulled my arm into my belly because I remember thinking, there's some Navy folks over there that if they get a hold of me, they might can save me. If a Marine gets here, he's going to start cutting stuff off. That's how we were trained. We were trained, hey, cut the bad tissue away because MRSA and that stuff, the flesh-eating bacteria was real bad. So they took us not far from here to an avocado farm, and we did operations on pigs all day to learn how to save everybody. That's the only reason I'm still alive. And I remember them telling us, cut all the bad tissue away. And I thought, well, man, if that Marine gets over here, he's just going to start cutting my arm off, and I might want to save that thing. Like, get somebody with education, somebody from the Navy, they might know how to save it. So I remember pulling my arm in and kind of hiding it, like, don't let the Marines see, they'll cut that sucker off and throw it away, I'm already missing my feet. And I was thinking, my papa used to make fun of my legs. He said, boy, is that your legs? You riding on a chicken. They weren't that impressive to begin with. But I worked real hard at the gym on my biceps, and I thought, I was still pretty single at the time. I thought, man, I'm going to have both arms if I'm going to overcome being in a wheelchair or something, I still might want a baby mama one day, And so I remember pulling my arm into my belly, and finally a Marine gets to me. He'd only been in country for a couple of weeks before this operation. He doesn't know what to do. He's trying to put tourniquets on. It looks like something that, just like a mess. And I realized he's not being very helpful, and the worst thing that can happen is if I don't make it, he blames himself. So I said, hey, don't worry about it, Doc's coming. Just say the Lord's Prayer with me. He said, okay, Sergeant Jones. So he leans down, real intense. He's never seen anything like this before. I've seen it a dozen times on my deployment. I've been there for 6 months. He says, okay, and I said, all right, well, our Father who art in heaven, and then almost simultaneously, liberty and justice for all. And we realized in that moment, sometimes it's intent, not execution, that matters most, So you had to imagine how it felt when they said, hey, we want you to say the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. I'm thinking, I just hope I don't start saying the Lord's Prayer again. But I feel like this is a crowd that just joined in with that too, so I wasn't too worried about it. And so we get through that, and we kind of get to where, there's some bread or something, I don't know. We kind of make our way through the prayer, I think we already said the rifle was street and everything at this point. Just kind of went through all of it that we could conquer. And by this time, the rest of the Marines and the corpsmen get there, but they go right past me and they go straight to Greer. Now, the thing about it was Greer used to be here, and now he's up there, and he's laying on his belly, he's looking back at me, and he's knocked out from the blast, is what it looks like. They got him on a stretcher, and I thought, that's crazy. Usually they put the most screwed up guy on the stretcher first. I'm like, that guy's just knocked out. I don't even know how much meat's left, I didn't think you should take me. I was thinking, well, what's wrong with Greer? And as they ran by, they go, we've got a heavy breather. I remember thinking, hell, he's from Tennessee, but I wouldn't make fun of him. The guy's hurt, And I remember like this crazy stuff's going through my mind because I'm in shock. I remember honing in on what is a heavy breather? What does that mean? And they get past and actually drop him off the stretcher because they're all new to this. They hadn't been worse than what we had. They get him back up and get him out of the air, and the stretcher still had to come to get me, and my eyes started to swell shut. And it, I don't know what's happening. I'm still conscious, but everything's dark. Face feels like it's gone. I know my legs are gone. I don't know if I have a left arm. My right arm looks like Harry Potter. And they don't have spells to grow stuff back in the real world. And I'm thinking, maybe this is it, and that's okay. And so I'm conscious as they get me on a stretcher, and they get me off the battlefield, and they get me to a mobile trauma bay, which is a big sterile box that they can perform surgery in the middle of a combat zone. It's pretty amazing. And I remember them working on me there, and they finally kind of put me into La La Land. And I don't know if I'm alive or not, or what's happening. This is August 6, 2010. On August 8th, 2010, I'm awoken at Modesto, Germany, in the hospital there.
Doesn't wake up until
And a nurse, the doctor comes in, they come in, they take this breathing apparatus out of me. They had me intubated. I had a collapsed lung too. It's get the bingo card, you just mark them all. So I had a collapsed lung and a busted up cheekbone, and my My face was a little bit messed up. My legs weren't there. They had my arm. It was still there, but it had bars coming out of it everywhere. It was an halo. And this one had bars coming out of it. It wasn't a halo. So I don't know if that was better or worse, but I was just glad to see both of them. I could count at the time 9.5 fingers, and that was pretty good. And so I'm laying there like this, and they pull this tube out of me, and it's crazy because when it comes out, it's looking back at you, and they're waking you up. I'm thinking you could take that out and then wake me up, and that would be okay. And I try to talk, but I can't. My throat's dropped because I've had this in my mouth for a couple of days now. They've had me intubated because they were trying to get blood in me because my body lost too much blood and my heart didn't work anymore. And so they kept working and kept working and kept me around. Being think I'm stubborn. They pulled this tube out of me, and I've still got tubes in a lot of places that you couldn't put a tube just a couple of days before. And the nurse pulls that out, and I try to talk and I can't. So she goes, hang on a second. So she gets this styrofoam cup with a popsicle stick hanging out of it. And she walks over there to me. Are there any nurses in the room, by the way? Yeah. So nurses are angels. They save lives. They're also a little bit evil. So she walks over there, and there's this styrofoam cup. She puts water in it. She stirs it with a popsicle stick. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm a Marine, I get it. You're going to hold my tongue down with that popsicle stick. You're going to pour that water down my throat so I can talk. I like it. I'm thirsty. I mean, it's like I'm parched. I've been in the desert for 40 days and 40 nights. You know, I'm starting to like see things. So she walks over there, she grabs that popsicle stick out. There's a sponge on the end of it. And I go, well, you know, it's an Army hospital. I guess they needed to pad it for them, you know. But I'd be happy with just a wooden stick. Hold my tongue down, get me going here. So she reaches toward me with that sponge, and right before she goes in my mouth, she swirls it around my lips, you know. Well, you know, kind of grease the skids. I guess I get it. You know, let me crack my lips. I mean, not to mention, I've got the dust in my hair. I look like, you know, Ace Ventura. So I mean, it's like spikes straight up my arms. All this work couldn't give me a bath. So she reaches that popsicle stick back in there. She pulls it back out. She comes back towards my mouth, and I'm trying to, you know, she goes around my lips. Again, I'm thinking, lady, I mean, there's times I don't mind being teased. This ain't one of them. Give me that water, you know. Like, I'm volunteer for Guantanamo Bay right now. Waterboard me, you don't even need the cheese cloth. I don't care. I need the water. I'm done that, you know. This is not fun. I'm thirsty. I can't talk. I can't do anything else. At least let me talk, you know. So finally, she wets around my lips enough. She never lets me drink the water, but she wets around my lips enough that the water goes in and it loosens up the vocal cords, and I can speak a little bit. And I don't think anything about it. I just say, "Where's Greer?" First, I guess it was what was on my mind. And she looked at me. And she set the cup down. She was at the sink. She grabs a cloth. It's cold water on it. Folds it. Brings it over. She rubs it on my forehead. Wipes me off. She smiles. She looks down and she goes, "You've lost both your legs at the knee. But don't worry, hon. You're going to walk again." Now, everything I've said up until now is a war story, and you can find those in droves. Some way more impactful than mine. But that moment, if you take anything with you tonight, that moment, I asked her, "Where's Greer?" And she says to me, "Don't worry, hon, you're going to walk again." And the reason why that's important is she had the wisdom of experience. She had seen guys like me come in there over and over again. Probably more than she should have. I know more than she should have. And every one of them had a long journey ahead of them. We're going to have to go learn to walk again, and that's a painful thing. That's a pain that never goes away. But the pain of guilt and loss and remorse and doubt is much stronger. And in that moment, the truth was Daniel Greer was a couple of doors down, and his family had got there from Tennessee to say their goodbyes, take the machines off of him and let him pass on. A piece of the wall I was leaning against, where the bomb was at, hit him in a place that caused a severe traumatic brain injury, and he pretty much died on the battlefield that day. And I don't bring that up to make you sad. I hope you remember him. I don't talk without mentioning his name because he sacrificed his life for me. I bring it up for a couple of reasons. One, there is nothing fair in this life. Don't go looking for it. That's where you put a blue ribbon on the pig. It's not about being fair. This life is cruelly unfair. Anybody deserved to die from that bomb? It was me. But I didn't kill him. You're going to tell me I did. That if you're sacrificed that day, because of the sacrifice, I'm alive. Who knows how many other Marines survived that day because of the sacrifice. I bring that up to you because of what the nurse said and why she said it. She understood that in that moment, the most important thing she could say to me was what I needed to hear, when I needed to hear it, even though that wasn't what I was asking for. She understood something I didn't, which is from that moment of waking up in that hospital bed, through all of the pain and suffering that would come after it, I needed to be thankful, positive, and be full of gratitude, and to understand that the only way to gain Greer's life is sacrifice. The only way to honor that was to go walk again, was to not give up in that hospital, was to keep fighting. So every time I went to Walter Reed a few days later, I started my rehabilitation. It took a few days to get off the horse tranquilizer they had you on. I had the craziest dreams. Crazy dreams. Crazy stuff. They had fentanyl and everything else. So it took me a couple of days to get sober enough to start my rehab, but I started almost immediately. I set goals, I achieved goals. First goal was to get stitched up. 3 surgeries a week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, going to surgery that operated on all 4 limbs. Monday, Wednesday, Friday for a handful of weeks. And then once they got to where they could start stitching things up, then a few weeks after that, where they stitched them up, it's healed, and now I can put on legs. And the first set of legs are called shorties. You're only about that tall. My 2 best friends were 5'7" and 5'8", and they realized the fact that I had to look up to them for a couple of weeks. And I walked quickly because of that. But I've got a picture. I said, you got to set goals and meet them. Things are going to humble you in life to the point you don't think you can come back. And the truth is, you cannot go from here to here to here. But you can go from here to here to there to there to there to there and keep going. So I had to set goals and meet them. My first goal was to be standing up again. There's a whole story about catheters. I don't need to go there. This is stuff that. It's a whole other thing. But this is what I'll tell you. The first goal I set was to pee standing up again. And the day I realized I was peeing standing up, I turned around and hit the door open, kicked it open on a little short leg, looked at my brother-in-law and said, take my picture, I'm peeing standing up again. He took my picture and everybody clapped. Except for the janitor. The janitor did not clap. You're just learning to control that again. You can't just turn it off. But you got to set goals and meet them in life. And life will absolutely humble you because it's not fair. It's full of tragedy and adversity. But all those things are worth it. The fact is, you have a superpower in your life right now today. You have the ability to look at someone and tell them what they need to hear, when they need to hear it, even if that's not what they're looking for. The first person you can tell that to is the person in the mirror every morning. Don't worry, hon, you're going to walk again. You see, you all have a lot of reverence for me, or at least you've expressed it in some ways, because I lost my legs above the knee on both sides in combat at 24 years old. A 24-year-old Marine could get run over by a train and stand up and dust it off. We're in peak physical condition. We have the best medical care available to us, and we have a whole country of grateful Americans telling us, don't worry, hon, you're going to walk again. I appreciate your gratitude and reverence, but I need you to think about this for a moment. At 24 years old, having lost my legs, I knew nothing of what it meant to lose a parent, to lose a child, to go through bankruptcy, divorce, to be diagnosed with an illness like cancer. I knew nothing of what it meant to be living every day with a disease that may still take my life, but choosing to get up and go to work and go to church and go to school and go to events like this and to continue to provide for my family, as a man to protect my family, to raise my kids, to be there for my spouse, to be there for my community, to be there for causes that are bigger than me and may not affect my life directly. But that's what all of you are dealing with right now. Every one of those things I just mentioned are in this room. Yet here you are, laughing at my terrible jokes, eating an amazing meal, having fellowship, and coming together, not because you agree on everything, but because you agree on some important things. You call it patriotism or freedom. But really what it is that we believe in is each other. It's community. It's a responsibility that we have to those in our lives that mean the most to us. In our homes, in our work, in our schools, in our church. Responsibility is one of the greatest things you could ever fathom. Because if you have responsibility, that means that someone or some group of people have chosen you to do a thing that only you can do for them. If you're responsible for leading a team, for teaching a class, for changing a diaper, for putting food on the table, for driving from point A to point B. I mean, that's one of the most dangerous things you can do. But somebody relies on you to do this thing, to be that person, to stand in that gap, to be there at that time. Motivation is great, but responsibility, it's there all the time, whether you feel like it or not. And it can get tremendous. It can weigh on your shoulders. But remember that responsibility is affirmation. That on your worst day, you're somebody that can be relied on. You're somebody that will do a thing and be a place and help. And that there are other human beings in this world that have a sense of security because of you and the responsibility you've chosen to take up and fulfill. That's a hero. That's a collective. That's who we are. That's what patriotism is. We can fight about policies all day. Mine are real simple. Keep my gun room big, my government small. The rest of it we can talk. But I know those aren't everyone's priorities. Those aren't the priorities of everyone who votes like me. At 37 years old, if I'm solid in my ways, don't learn something in the next 30 years, I'm doing it wrong. So why care about any of it? Because I have a responsibility to my family, to my community, to my kids. I have a responsibility to you all that wouldn't let me lay in a hospital bed, to the people in this country that said, don't worry, hon, you're going to walk again, and we're going to help you do it. I owe you my testimony. I owe you what I've learned from it. You paid for me to go to war, you paid for me to recover. How much do these legs cost? I don't know, you paid for it. I owe it to you to share you what I've learned and what I believe in, because I believe it can help you as well. Now, our message is not overly political, because we cover that ground every day. Our message is about life. It's about learning to love it in spite of adversity. It's about being grateful for it. If you can find gratitude, you found it all. Because when you're arguing with someone you love, you use that moment to remember, pretty dang grateful to love that person and have them love you. And if they don't, well, get rid of them. That's okay too. Second, third, whichever one works out. But the point there lies is it's not easy. We're always pushing a snowball uphill in the middle of summer. We're always carrying cinder block up the hill and nobody's watching. We're always taking bombs apart in Afghanistan. We're always dealing with the illness and the sadness and the loss. But in all those moments, there are those people in our lives that we have a responsibility to, that make us happy, and we have a chance to make them happy. I found out I had a 3-month-old son a few months before I deployed. It wasn't his choice to have a dad at war. It certainly wasn't his choice to have a dad with no legs. So it had to be my choice to be his dad anyway. To find a way to do the things with him that he deserved to have done. To teach him how to throw balls and run, drive, treat women, treat his mother. Do the tough things when nobody's looking. Those are our responsibilities. We can complain about how kids are raised all day long. But at some point, we're the one raising them. We can complain about teachers all day long. One of the reasons why teachers think they're the parents is because too many kids in that school, teachers are their parents. We can still have an effect on that. We can have a voice for what's happening in this country, but we can have a direct action on what's happening around us. In our community, in our family, in our church, in our school, in our work. It's where it starts, it's where it stays, until it catches fire. That's what I believe in because that's what I've seen. This whole country believed in me, but it was my community that put me back together. It was my family that was there feeding me lunch when I didn't have hands to do it myself. It was those nurses that didn't get paid near enough and worked too much, but cared about my recovery that got me through it. And that's what we are for this country. We're the nurses, we're the family, we're the community. We can have our impact right here, right now, today. Politics matter. People matter more. Policies matter. People matter more. And that doesn't mean stand down on your conviction, but it means what the Marine Corps taught me. We get on to people with a knife hand because if one finger is pointing back, then we need to relook at ourselves. So the time it takes to remember to use a knife hand is the time you took to say, am I perfect? Am I doing everything right? The fact is, I don't know if I can even say this anymore, I certainly shouldn't say it on TV, but there's more than one way to skin a cat. I can tell you my way's right. Doesn't mean I can tell you your way's wrong. I'm not talking about compromise, because compromise in DC is a whole lot of nothing. I'm talking about dinner table conversations. I'm talking about meeting people where they are. I'm talking about remembering that if you don't have love and respect for that person, it doesn't matter if you agree on things. Because that's what a community is. And that's what made this country something amazing. This is absolutely the most amazing country in the world. But let me explain to you why. It's not because of the strength of our military or size of our economy or even our free system of government when it works. What I got to say about that? We're the greatest country in the world because we are the only country as prosperous and respected and solid as we are, made of people that came from different places, that talk different languages, that cook different food, that pray to different gods or different versions of God, that vote different ways. There are more things that pull us apart than we think put us together. But when we get up in the morning, we walk out our door, we see someone trip and fall, we don't think about those things. Our reaction as Americans is, don't worry, hon, you can walk again. We pick them up, we dust them off, and we have a conversation and send them on their way. Don't forget how powerful a smile is. Don't forget that an act of kindness costs you nothing. And if they can't reciprocate it, they can't return it, that's on them, not you. One thing my dad told me was never loan a friend more than a friendship's worth. And as long as somebody owes you, you'll never go broke. And what he's really saying there is don't value someone for what they can give back to you. And don't be afraid to do something for someone if they can't give it back to you. That's how I'm trying to live my life. It's a struggle, but it's a whole lot happier. I challenge you to do that not because I think it's going to solve our politics, but because I think it'll make you a happier person. I think it'll make you a blessing to the people around you, even more so than you already are. And I think it'll help grow gratitude in your life, which makes a lot of sense about all the bad things that continue to happen. Adversity is constant. And I've never met anyone of substance that didn't go through trauma at some point. Those things are a blessing. Having hardships are a part of life, but you got to be alive to have them. That's something to be grateful for. I love this country. I love the people in it. You guys have taken damn good care of me. You tell me all the time how much you like me. This is my chance to tell you just how amazing you are and how much I love you. It's an absolute honor to say I was a United States Marine and served in war. Not because those medals or that title mean anything, but because what that means is that for a snapshot of my life, I got to know what it meant to sacrifice something for people I've never met. And I'm more proud of that than anything other than being a father. So from the bottom of my heart, let me thank you for that opportunity. Thank you for being a country worth serving. And when someone says thank you for your service, my sentiment back is thank you for being worth serving.
Yeah.
That's what this country is for me. I understand there was a debate last night, people trying to be president, things of that nature. They'll talk about if we're on a morning sunset or a bleak dark time. Some things I do know. We're not at war with half the Western world, turning in scrap metal for a war effort. We're not standing in the government cheese line just yet. There are people alive in this country who know what it was like to be in this country before it was considered a superpower. A lot of the problems we have created out of boredom. Not our struggle to exist, to be free. And I only bring that up, not to tell you that these problems aren't important, but to tell you that generations of Americans have worked their way through problems, and this country still is American. And if we don't believe in it, if we don't recognize it, what's the point of fighting for it to begin with? So you have to. You've got a binary choice. Gratitude or regret. Belief or doubt. Work or don't. And I ask you to choose the former in all of those. It's perspective. For me, perspective is vitally important. I was late today because in 12 years of not having legs, I still can't remember it takes me 3 times as long to get ready. And I hate being late. I was in the Marine Corps for a little while. Well, there's something I've learned. If I'm driving somewhere and I'm stuck in 5 o'clock traffic and there's no way I'm going to get there when I'm meant to be, when I wanted to be, when I needed to be, I can't change that. It's not my fault that when I drive on the interstate, I'm the only one that around me that knows how to drive. That's not my fault. So perspective is to take the dial and turn it to my favorite song. To take and put it at my favorite temperature. And accept the fact that for that moment, the biggest problem in my life is I have to be entertained and comfortable for longer than I'm meant to be. That's perspective. And with any luck, acknowledging that, accepting that, and appreciating that means I show up late but with gratitude. Late but with energy. Late but with grace. Late but with the ability to turn it around. Sometimes that's the best we can be. We don't get to choose the things that happen to us, but we get to choose how we respond. It wasn't my choice to be in a hospital bed with bow legs. But if the rest of my life was going to be from that bed or from a chair, or God willing, from some prosthetic legs, I had that choice and the help and support to get there. And I just hope that that means something to you and you can apply it to your life. Because I really don't care what your politics are. I care how much that you care about the people around you, about what we mean to each other, and about the responsibility you have to them and to yourself. That's what I care about. And if you care about those things, I think we'll line up on politics more than not. I try not to ever talk, especially not preach, which I've done more of than I should have tonight, without at least saying one joke that was meant to be funny. It's true as well. So, it's a fun little story I like to tell, especially in this crowd. 2000, I believe it was 13. I was invited to have dinner with President Obama at the White House. Now, this was called the Combatant Commanders Dinner. So, 34 of, at the time, 36 four-star generals were there. And they had decided to invite some of the guys that were, blown up and stuff. It's kind of part of the dog and pony, so their appreciation. So they invited a soldier that was an E4. They invited me. I was an E6 as a Marine. So I got to sit with the president. The soldier had to sit with the vice president. So God bless him. I mean, he probably had the same conversation 3 times. Hey, you awake over there? Anyway. That's funny. Thankfully, my dinner date was not short of words at all. And so President Obama's to my left. A couple of generals were around the table. Now, those of you that follow the military, Crystal was there, Mattis was there, Petraeus was there, but none of them were at the president's table. They were kind of spread out. You can't put that much ego at one table and tip over. Kind of like Hank Johnson worried about Guam tipping over. And so you had to kind of spread that ego around a little bit so you could have a good time and have a conversation.